He invited his African ex-girlfriend to his wedding to get back at her, but what she did was unforgettable. This is the story of what happens when love turns bitter and revenge takes an unexpected turn. Marcus Reed, a self-made millionaire, believed he had everything: money, influence, and a bride who perfectly matched his high-flying lifestyle. Yet, hidden in his heart was a wound from an old betrayal. To settle the score, Marcus invited his ex, Zara Thompson, to his lavish wedding, planning to show off his new life and success. But Zara, a determined and independent woman, wasn't about to let herself be embarrassed. What transpired that day was not the revenge Marcus had envisioned. It turned into an experience that would change his life forever. Marcus stood in his upscale apartment, gazing out at the sparkling city skyline. His world was one of luxury and power, a far cry from his humble beginnings. Dressed sharply in a tailored suit and sipping a glass of fine whiskey, he looked every bit the self-made man. Yet, on the marble counter lay an embossed wedding invitation with gold lettering that boldly displayed the name Zara Thompson. Though it had been 3 years since their breakup, Marcus remembered every detail: her quick wit, steadfast values, and the way she had left his life without a backward glance. "She'll see everything she gave up," he muttered bitterly. His assistant, Adam, entered the room carrying a tablet. "Sir, the final guest list is complete. Anything else?" Marcus picked up the invitation and said, "Send this to Zara Thompson. Make sure it's delivered personally. I want her to feel the weight of this." Adam hesitated. "Are you really sure about inviting your ex to your wedding?" Marcus's steely look silenced him. "Absolutely sure. Just get it done in a quiet neighborhood far away." Meanwhile, Zara was at her cozy little home, flipping through a book. Her life was worlds apart from Marcus's life of extravagance, yet she had built something meaningful through her art, her community, and her independence. The doorbell rang, and when she answered it, a well-dressed courier handed her an elegant envelope. "Delivery for Miss Zara Thompson," he said politely. Zara frowned as she took the envelope. Its heavy, gold-edged paper spoke of wealth and attention to detail. When she opened it, her breath caught as she read the invitation. "Marcus Reed and Miranda Cole requests the honor of your presence at their wedding." Her heart raced as memories of their passionate arguments, shared dreams, and the painful day she left him flooded back. Why would Marcus invite me to his wedding? And why now? She whispered while staring at the graceful script. Anger surged within her. She knew Marcus too well to trust his motives, but a stronger, newer part of her felt a spark of determination. "This isn't about him," Zara declared. "It's about showing him who I've become." With that resolve, she set the invitation on her kitchen table and booked a flight to New York, ready to confront whatever Marcus had planned at his wedding venue, a grand estate filled with opulent decorations and busy staff. Back at the estate, Marcus oversaw every final detail. The gardens were lined with white roses, the chandeliers shone brilliantly in the evening light, and every element of the event screamed perfection. Yet, as Marcus walked through the majestic hall, his thoughts kept drifting to Zara. He imagined her arrival, her presence commanding the room as it always had. "Are you ready for this?" his fiancée, Miranda, asked gently as she appeared by his side. Her tone was warm, but her eyes searched his face for something more. Marcus forced a smile and replied, "Of course, everything is going exactly as planned." But deep down, he couldn't shake off a growing unease. He had meticulously organized every part of the day, yet the thought of facing Zara unsettled him in ways he hadn't expected. As the day approached, Marcus began to realize that this event wasn't solely about revenge. It was also about finding closure, or so he kept telling himself. The estate buzzed with final touches as the wedding day neared. Florists were busy placing fresh roses along the marble walkways, and the staff polished silverware until it gleamed. From his balcony in the master suite, Marcus watched it all with a calm, controlled demeanor, though his mind was far from peaceful. He had planned every detail carefully, even the invitation to Zara Thompson. The idea of her walking into his perfectly curated world stirred a mix of anticipation and dread. Part of him wanted her to see his success, to witness how far he had come without her, while another, unacknowledged part, feared that her presence might awaken something long buried. Zara arrived in a taxi, her heels clicking on the cobblestone driveway as she took in the grandeur of the estate. It was as extravagant as she had imagined, with towering arches, pristine gardens, and an air of exclusivity that reminded her why she had once left Marcus. His world had always felt like a gilded cage, beautiful yet stifling. Adjusting the hem of her sleek emerald dress, she took a deep breath and told herself, "You can do this," as she approached the entrance. The staff greeted her with courteous professionalism and guided her to the grand ballroom where the rehearsal dinner was taking place. As she walked in, she could sense the curious stares of other guests. "Isn't that Zara Thompson?" someone whispered. Holding her head high, she refused to let the murmurs shake her. If Marcus intended to make her feel unwelcome, he was in for a surprise. Inside the ballroom, Marcus stood at the head of a long, ornately set table, flanked by Miranda and their closest friends. His suit was immaculate, exuding the same effortless charm that had once drawn Zara to him. But when his eyes met hers across the room, his composure wavered. Zara looked stunning. Her emerald dress perfectly accentuated her figure, and her natural elegance immediately captured everyone's attention. Marcus had planned for this moment, yet seeing her face to face stirred emotions he wasn't ready to confront. Miranda noticed his distraction and asked, "Who's that?" in a tone that was both light and inquisitive. Marcus replied with a strained smile, "Just an old acquaintance." The tension in his voice betrayed him, and as Zara made her entrance, the buzz of conversation in the room dwindled to silence. Marcus stepped forward to meet her, his expression guarded. "Zara," he said quietly, his tone low. "You came?" Zara responded with a smile that mixed warmth with defiance. "Did you really think I wouldn't show up for a second?" They stood in silence, the weight of their shared past hanging heavily between them. Soon Miranda approached to break the awkward quiet. "Aren't you going to introduce me?" she said sweetly but with a hint of curiosity. "This is Zara Thompson," Marcus introduced. "An old friend." Zara repeated the introduction with a cool smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Nice to meet you, Miranda." Miranda shook her hand politely, adding, "Marcus told me so much about your past, though I'm not sure he mentioned you." Zara laughed softly. "Some parts of the past are harder to discuss than others." Miranda's eyes flicked between Marcus and Zara, her smile firm, though her eyes remained sharp. "Well, I hope you enjoy your evening. I'll leave you two to catch up." As Miranda walked away, Zara turned back to Marcus and asked in a firmer tone, "So, what was the real reason you invited me? Don't tell me you suddenly need closure." Marcus's jaw tightened as he replied, "I thought you might like to see what you left behind." Zara laughed lightly, a sound that cut deep. "Ah, there's that arrogance I remember so well." The rest of the evening unfolded as a careful dance of tension and unspoken words. Zara mingled easily with the other guests, her charm and wit winning admiration, while Marcus watched from a distance, caught between pride, anger, and regret. As dinner came to a close, Marcus found Zara standing on the terrace, gazing out at the sprawling gardens. "You've always known how to light up a room," he said, joining her. "And you've also always filled it with unnecessary drama," she replied coolly. Marcus sighed, his defenses beginning to crumble. "Why did you come, Zara?" he asked. She looked at him steadily and said, "Because I wanted to see if you had changed. but it seems you're still playing the same old games." Marcus frowned as her words struck a nerve. "And what about you? Still pretending to be above it all?" Zara shook her head and smiled gently. "No, I'm just true to myself now. Aren't you?" Before he could answer, Miranda's voice called from inside, "Marcus, it's time for the toast." Zara gave him one last challenging look before heading back inside. Marcus remained, weighed down by her words as he realized the reunion was not unfolding as he had planned. Later, as guests clinked champagne glasses in celebration, Marcus sat at the head of the table with Miranda beaming beside him. But his mind was far away. He couldn't shake the sound of Zara's laughter echoing softly as she charmed a small group of guests. Miranda leaned in and whispered, "You've been distracted all evening. Are you sure you're all right?" Marcus forced a smile and said, "I'm fine, just thinking about tomorrow." Miranda's gaze lingered, but she didn't press further. Meanwhile, Zara was well aware of Marcus's sidelong glances. She had come prepared for his tricks, but the tension between them was deeper than she'd expected. It wasn't merely bitterness. It was something unresolved. As the evening wound down, Zara stepped out onto the terrace for a moment of solitude. The cool night air was a welcome relief from the warmth inside, and the distant sounds of laughter faded as she looked at the moonlit gardens. "I thought I'd find you here," Marcus's voice broke the silence. Zara didn't change her calm stance, but replied sharply, "Did you come to gloat? Or is this just another one of your plans to remind me of what I left behind?" Marcus stepped closer, his confidence faltering. "So you think you figured me out?" he asked. Zara met his eyes steadily and said, "I don't need to figure you out. You haven't changed at all. You're still trying to prove yourself to everyone, even to me." Her words hit him hard, and she continued, "And if that were true, you wouldn't have invited me." Zara crossed her arms. "You invited me because you wanted something from me, but you're not going to get it." Marcus's frustration boiled over. "You don't understand what I want," he snapped. Zara took another step closer, her voice steady. "Maybe not, but I know it won't come from revenge. This isn't about me. It's about you and all. The things you're too scared to confront." Her words lingered as she turned and walked back inside, leaving Marcus alone on the terrace with the weight of her accusations. The next morning, the estate was buzzing with activity. Wedding staff hurried to perfect every detail, while guests milled about in anticipation of the ceremony. Marcus moved through the preparations almost mechanically, his polished exterior belying the storm inside him. Miranda found him in the lounge, adjusting his tie in front of a gleaming mirror. "You seem tense," she observed, placing a hand on his arm. "I'm fine," he replied curtly, brushing her off. Miranda's eyes narrowed. "What's going on? You've been off since the rehearsal dinner." Marcus hesitated, searching for the right words. "It's nothing, just nerves." Miranda's smile grew tighter. "If there's something you're not saying, now's the time." Before he could respond, a staff member announced that the ceremony was about to begin. Relieved. For a brief moment, Marcus took a deep breath as the guests gathered in the garden. Standing at the altar, he felt the weight of the moment. The string quartet played softly, the music blending with the rustling leaves, while Miranda began her walk down the aisle, glowing in her gown. Yet Marcus's eyes kept drifting to the audience where, in the second row, Zara sat. She wasn't trying to stand out, but she naturally drew every eye, highlighting all of Marcus's insecurities and doubts that he'd long buried. As the ceremony's official words blurred around him, the moment for the vows arrived. Miranda turned toward him, her eyes full of hope. "Marcus," she said softly, prompting him to speak, but when he opened his mouth, no words came out. Instead, he glanced at Zara, whose expression was steady and unreadable. In that instant, the truth struck him like a bolt of lightning. This wasn't about revenge or even Zara. It was about the emptiness he'd been trying to fill with power, money, and control. Miranda's voice, now tinged with confusion, cut through his thoughts. "What's going on?" she asked. Marcus's gaze dropped to the ground as murmurs began among the guests. The tension in the air was palpable. Miranda's face shifted from confusion to dawning realization. "I can't do this," Marcus finally admitted, his voice breaking, with guilt and regret. The silence that followed was deafening. Miranda stood frozen at the altar, her expression a mix of shock and humiliation as whispers rippled through the crowd. With his polished shoes clicking on the stone aisle, Marcus turned and walked away, leaving behind the carefully built life he once had. The garden's golden arches blurred in his vision as he entered the main hall, his breathing uneven and his thoughts in chaos. He had spent years constructing an image of success, only to see it unravel before those who mattered most. As the grand doors closed behind him, a soft voice interrupted his spiraling thoughts. Marcus turned sharply to see Zara standing with her arms crossed, her emerald dress catching the gentle light streaming through the windows. Her expression was not one of triumph or mockery. It was calm and steady. "You didn't have to do that," she said quietly. "Yes, I did," Marcus replied, his voice hoarse. "I couldn't go through with it, not like that." Zara tilted her head, studying him. "So what now? You humiliated your fiancé, shocked all your guests, and likely damaged your reputation beyond repair. Was it worth it?" Marcus sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know. I just couldn't keep lying to myself anymore." Outside in the garden, chaos reigned as guests murmured in disbelief, some consoling Miranda, others speculating about what had gone wrong. Miranda's parents were furious, speaking in hushed yet heated tones with the wedding planner, while Miranda herself remained at the altar, clutching her bouquet so tightly her knuckles turned white. Eventually, she stormed toward the estate, ignoring the concerned faces around her. When Miranda reached the hall, she froze at the sight of Marcus and Zara standing close together, speaking in low, intense voices. "You couldn't have waited one more day," Miranda's voice cut sharply through the tension. Marcus's face was filled with guilt. "Miranda, no," she snapped, her eyes blazing. "You don't get to explain. You made your choice and there's nothing left to say." Zara stepped back, clearly unwilling to escalate the confrontation. "This isn't my fight," she said softly. Miranda's gaze shifted accusingly. "This is all about you, isn't it? I knew something was off the moment I saw you." Zara met her glare with quiet dignity. "I never asked to be here," she said. "That was Marcus's decision." Miranda laughed bitterly. "Of course it was. You've always had a knack for making choices that ruin lives." Marcus stepped forward. "Miranda, this isn't about Zara, it's about me. I wasn't ready for this marriage. I thought I was, but I wasn't. Spare me the self-reflection." Miranda's tone turned icy. "You just wanted to prove something, to her, to me, to yourself. And in doing so, you've destroyed everything." As Miranda stormed out, Marcus felt the crushing weight of her words. He turned to Zara, his shoulders slumping. "She's right. I ruined everything." Zara shook her head slowly. "You told the truth, Marcus. That isn't the same as ruining. Everything, it's a start." Her eyes softened with a mix of challenge and compassion. "Why did you ask me to come, Zara? Why didn't you just ignore the invitation?" She paused before answering. "Because I wanted to see if you had changed. And for what it's worth, today showed that maybe, just maybe, you have a little." Her words were like a lifeline, though Marcus still felt numb. "What am I supposed to do now?" he asked. "That's not for me to decide," Zara replied gently. "But perhaps it's time you stopped trying to prove yourself to everyone and started figuring out what you truly want." Marcus nodded slowly, her words resonating deeper than he cared. to admit. "Thank you, Zara," he said with a small, grateful smile that held more understanding than pity. "Good luck, Marcus." With that, Zara turned and walked away, leaving him alone in the vast hall. In the aftermath, once the guests had departed, whispers of the wedding's collapse spread quickly among social circles. Marcus knew the fallout would hit fast. His reputation, business ties, and the image he had painstakingly built over the years were all at stake. Yet none of it felt as heavy as the emptiness settling in his heart. Sitting alone in his study, he swirled a glass of whiskey and stared into the flickering fireplace, the silence amplifying every doubt gnawing at him. Had Miranda been right? Had he destroyed everything for nothing? A soft knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. It was Adam, his assistant. "Sir?" Adam began cautiously. "There's already talk among the board. They're worried about how this whole situation might affect the company." Marcus nodded, his jaw tightening. "Let them talk. I'll handle it." Adam hesitated. "The family has even released a statement about the wedding. It's not a flattering picture." Marcus let out a bitter laugh. "Of course it isn't. Do you need me to take charge of it?" Adam asked more gently. "No," Marcus replied. "This is something I have to face on my own." Adam lingered a moment before leaving. Meanwhile, Zara sat in her hotel room, staring at her suitcase. She had come expecting a battle of wits, ready to stand her ground against Marcus's games. Yet the man she encountered wasn't the same as the one she'd left behind. His vulnerability and unexpected honesty had lingered in her mind. Despite everything, a part of her still remembered the ambition, charm, and potential for change he once had. Her phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. "Thank you for coming. I need to see you before you leave. Please." Zara sighed, torn, between her better judgment and the lingering connection they shared. After a moment, she sent back a brief reply. "Let's meet tomorrow morning at the cafe near my hotel at 10 o'clock. The next morning, Marcus arrived early at the cafe, his usual confidence replaced by nervous tension. Dressed in a simple blazer and jeans, he felt out of place among the relaxed crowd. When Zara walked in, dressed casually yet elegantly, he couldn't help but catch his breath. Her presence was as composed as ever, naturally commanding the room. "Marcus," she greeted as she sat down across from him. He replied softly, "Zara." For a few moments, neither spoke, the air between them charged with unspoken history and lingering emotion. Finally, Zara broke the silence. "Why did you ask me to meet?" she asked. Marcus exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "I needed to apologize for everything, inviting you to the wedding in an attempt to prove something was foolish and wrong." Zara raised an eyebrow in surprise at his candor. "Go on," she urged. Marcus leaned forward, his voice sincere, yet steady. "Seeing you again made me realize how much I've been hiding, from myself and from everyone else. I spent years chasing an idea of success that ultimately consumed me, and yesterday, for the first time, I stopped pretending." Zara studied him silently for a long moment. "So, what will you do now?" she finally asked. "I don't know," he admitted. "But I want to figure it out, and I know it starts with being honest with myself and with those who matter." Zara nodded, her expression softening. "That's a start," she said. "Marcus, I'm not expecting forgiveness, or even that. You fix everything immediately, but you need to know you were right about so many things. And I'm sorry for how you were treated in the past." Zara leaned back in her chair, arms folded, pausing for a moment before a small smile appeared. "I didn't come here to fix you," she said gently. "That's something only you can do. But I'm glad you're finally starting to see it, for yourself." Marcus's eyes glistened with gratitude. "Thank you, Zara, for everything." She gathered her bag. "Take care of yourself and try not to burn any more bridges," she advised softly as she left the cafe. Watching her go, Marcus felt a clarity he hadn't experienced in years. A glimmer of hope, not for what was lost, but for what could be built anew. As he made his way back to his apartment, the usual city hustle felt different. The carefully maintained facade was gone, stripped away by the events of the past 24 hours. What remained was a man who had chased an image of success for so long that he'd forgotten what real success meant. Later that day, as he stepped into the quiet sanctuary of his home, Marcus's phone buzzed with an urgent email from the board of his company, asking for a meeting to discuss the fallout from the canceled wedding. He stared at the screen, feeling the heavy pressure of their expectations. He called Adam and scheduled a meeting for that afternoon. "Are you sure, sir?" Adam asked cautiously over the phone. "I'm certain," Marcus interrupted. "I need to face this." In the boardroom of Reed Enterprises, a stark, modern space that contrasted sharply with the grand estate, Marcus found the company's top executives waiting with guarded expressions. He entered with quiet resolve, his suit impeccable despite the lack of his usual confidence. "Good afternoon," he began, taking his seat at the head of the table. The room fell silent, and Sophie Grant, the head of public relations, leaned forward. "The news of the canceled wedding is all over the media. People are speculating about your personal life and what it means for the company." Marcus met her gaze directly. "I'm aware of the headlines, and I take full responsibility. But let me be clear, my personal life does not define this company. Our values, our innovation, and our commitment to excellence stand above all else." The room quieted as Marcus continued, his tone firm but calm. "What happened yesterday was a wake-up call. I've been chasing perfection, trying to live up to expectations that weren't my own. That ends today. From now on, this company will stand not only for success, but for integrity." Sophie raised an eyebrow. "And how do you plan to repair the damage to your reputation?" Marcus leaned in, his voice steady. "By being honest. I'm not perfect, and I won't pretend to be. I'll rebuild brick by brick with transparency and accountability, and it starts with this company." The board exchanged skeptical glances, and murmurs passed through the room. Marcus sensed a shift, a grudging respect for his newfound honesty. Later that evening, back at his apartment, Marcus felt both exhausted and relieved. The board had given him time to stabilize the company's public image, though the road ahead would be challenging. He poured himself a glass of water and stared out at the city lights, his thoughts drifting back to Zara. Her words echoed in his mind. "Only you can fix this." He walked to his study, opened a long-forgotten drawer, and found an old photograph of him and Zara from their early days, smiles wide and carefree. Running his fingers over the image, a bittersweet smile crept onto his face. He pulled out a notebook and began jotting down personal goals, aiming to be honest, to rebuild relationships sincerely, and to learn what it truly means to live. For the first time in years, Marcus felt like he was on the right path. A week later, Marcus attended a charity gala hosted by one of his longtime business partners. The event was modest compared to the lavish parties he was used to, but its focus on community and genuine connection felt refreshing. As he mingled with the guests, he spotted a familiar face near an art display, Zara, whose natural grace drew people in effortlessly. Summoning his courage, Marcus approached her. "Zara," he said softly. She looked surprised, but welcomed him. "What brings you here? Trying to keep your promises?" he asked with a tentative smile. "One step at a time," Zara replied. They stood together as the gala's noise faded into the background, and for the first time in years, Marcus felt lighter, as if a heavy burden was finally lifting. "Maybe we'll meet again sometime," Zara said in a gentle, meaningful tone. "Maybe," Marcus replied with a hopeful note in his voice as she walked away. Instead of the familiar sting of loss, he now felt the possibility of a fresh start. This entire journey reminds us that it's never too late to change, to rebuild, and to strive for a better version of ourselves.